Okay, let me give you an example. I'll go to the scripture to find an example of where somebody was negotiating for something and it turned out well. And I find that in the New Testament with the Apostle Paul in his letter to Philemon, a friend of his. Well, I began testing out the principles that I saw him use in different places. Not that long ago, I was with a client out west, and this client had a bond that they had, where they borrowed money from the government. And I don't know what the interest rate was, but it was fairly high. And for the last several years, they were trying to renegotiate that rate down from when they had first negotiated it some 10 or 12 years earlier, whatever it was. And they had written letters, they'd been on the phone, they tried to have meetings. They had been arguing with the government for years to try to reduce the rate because the rate had fallen considerably since the time they had negotiated this. Well, you know what? The state kept saying no, 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 no. So I told my client, I said, look, set up an appointment. We'll go to the capital city. We'll meet with them face to face. I'll help you. So he called them and said, listen, I've got somebody coming in. And before he could get too far, they said, no, there's nothing to talk about, nothing to negotiate. We're not changing anything. Sorry, you're stuck for another 14 years. That's the way it was. So I said, okay, tell you what. I got one last thing. We're going to come by your office and I'm going to open up the scriptures and we're going to go to the book of Philemon. I'm going to show you how to do this. We took 6 hours and we drafted a letter incorporating the principles that I studied for years trying to figure this thing out and put this into a letter and sent it off to them. Didn't hear anything for 2 weeks. 2 weeks later, they responded and said, okay, you win, and they dropped the interest rate to 3%. That saved them $9,000 a month interest. Okay, a little over $100,000 a year, had 14 years left on it, which was $1.4 million in bottom line cash savings. How? By utilizing a biblical methodology, a biblical strategy that I saw modeled by the Apostle Paul. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. I got so many more examples. We'll get into it in a minute. All right?